How's it going, friends? Today's video is an answer to a question that we get in the comments actually pretty often. And basically, we're going to work through the decision-making process of this question. What should I get? A single-family home, a townhome, or a condo? Let's get into it. How's it going, my friends? My name is Jesse Lynch, and I work with the hardest working real estate team in the game. We're called Welcome to Denver, and you can check out our website, welcometodenver.co. But this YouTube channel is all about helping you find a place to call home, a place to land here in the Denver area, the Front Range, Boulder, basically Fort Collins, down to Colorado Springs, pretty much everything you think of when you think about Colorado. And that's whether you're buying a house for the first time or relocating here from a different city, state, country, or universe. I'm gonna say universe this time. Usually I say planet. I don't know why universe just popped out at me. But anyways, first time home buyers, relocations, that's what we do, and that's what we do better than anybody else. So if either of those things appeal to you and you have not done so yet, subscribe to the channel, click the little bell to get notified. Every time we put out a new video, we put out a lot of videos, and they are the most immersive and hopefully just the best videos anywhere on the internet about living in the Denver area in Colorado. So yeah, I appreciate that very much. And as always, give the video a thumbs up and leave a comment of any kind. Just any kind of comment are super helpful. They're not only helpful to the video and the channel, but they're helpful to other folks like yourself, first-time home buyers, people relocating. And if that is you, if you are one of those folks, then we implore you to get a hold of us and we'll crush it for you. You can go to our website, welcometodenver.co, as in Colorado, clever. And we have a little contact form there. You can fill it out literally in 20 seconds. It'll take no time at all. Or you can shoot us an email directly to info@welcometodenver.co. Either way, they lead to the same exact inbox, so it's up to you how you want to do it. It doesn't really matter to us. We'll get back in touch with you, get you headed in the right direction, and make the process as easy as we absolutely possibly can. Today's video, we're talking through, basically we're answering this question, we're walking through the decision-making process of what should I buy, single family home, townhome, or condo? Okay, there's kind of a lot to get into, so let's just dive in. Okie dokie, let's just dive in. The way I see it, there's basically like 9 greater categories to consider when you're deciding between single family home, townhome, condo. And you know, I can't just answer that question for you, so let's talk through what they all are. I would say, to me, the number one discussion that if it's just you, then I guess this is like an internal dialogue that you have to have. If it's you and a partner, if it's you and a parent, if it's you and a kid, sometimes there's like a single parent with like a 17-year-old kid who has very strong opinions, and runs the show, then these are just important conversations that you should have prior to diving in. And that's not to say that you can't learn along the way. You definitely can. But I would say this first thing, which is basically just like, what are your priorities and what are your non-negotiables, right? Like, what are you looking for out of the home that are like really, really, really high up on the list, right? Most people don't have that hard of a time communicating this to us by the time we're talking to them, but I would imagine that at some point, if there's 2 different people, you had to sort of come to terms on what are in fact the most important things. And I would recommend that you focus on there's a few things that are basically like immovable objects, right? Like you could say this is a priority because there's no changing it, right? To me, saying like priority is like a renovated kitchen, or I need a walk-in shower. To me, that wouldn't be like top of the list. You can add a walk-in shower. Most people can, or if the home is perfect otherwise, it's like, okay, well, I'll deal with this like tub situation, but I'm going to be putting in a walk-in shower. But the sort of immovable objects, the powers that are hard to control, number one is going to be like area, right? Which has sort of sub brackets, which are like, what are the schools like? Potentially you don't have kids, you don't care about schools, okay, gone, doesn't matter. But for sure, area is going to matter for certain things. Proximity to work, right? Sometimes people will say, well, my new job is in X spot and I want to work within 30 minutes of there or an hour of there or however much, right? That sort of immovable thing is such a powerful variable that, okay, we know like, well, we're within this amount of time from this area. And then same with schools too, because some folks, more and more now, people are working from home and they're moving here for better quality of life or to be close to family or something like that. So maybe that point isn't where you work, maybe that point is where a family member works, or maybe that point is a specific school that you're like, that's where my kids are going because, you know, whatever reason, they have the best ping pong team in the whole world, you know, so yeah, those sort of immovable things. What are the priorities? And then, yeah, what are non-negotiable, right? So I obviously I can't decide what those are. I don't know who you are, but you hopefully, maybe you write this down and you go, okay, yeah, what are those things? Like proximity to X, Y, and Z. Maybe you're going to say, well, proximity to work, and then access to a school that's rated 7 or above, or rated a B plus or higher, or whatever. You know, those are the things where you go, okay, what are the priorities? You know, top 3, top 5 things where you're like, these are just like absolute must-haves. Because sometimes it's going to be, if it depends on how specific those things are, you're going to find you have a very broad sort of area, or you're going to find, if you're picky, and that's not a bad thing. I think of myself as a somewhat picky person for where I'm going to live. If you have, you know, a high standard of school or proximity to maybe both parents and home, or family member and home, or something like that, then that might only give you a sliver of the metro area, right? So I guess you know what those are, but those are, to me, are the number one thing to consider. Are what are the non-negotiables, what are the immovable objects, and what are our priorities? And so then the next step is basically like, for some people this is an immovable object, this is the priority, but some people, there's a little bit of room for wiggle, like a little bit of room for wiggle, like nobody says that, a little bit of wiggle room, but which is just basically budget, right? Like, what is your budget? Because, and these things all play in tandem, right? So you go, well, my budget is X, and I want to be in area where the schools are, you know, tremendous, and sometimes those just do not line up, right? Sometimes you just can't do both, right? But a lot of times you can, or a lot of times you can, you know, you go, okay, well, maybe I don't need an A plus school. Maybe an A minus school would do the trick. Or maybe I don't need a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. Maybe a 7 or an 8 out of 10 would be cool. And then how does that line up with your budget, right? And again, when we're talking, you know, in terms of, I guess, you know, back to the whole point of the video, which is the single family home, townhome, condo situation. To me, the immovable objects they have nothing to do with that part of it. Right? They have nothing to do with what type of structure you're living in, unless, you know, that immovable object is, I want to live in downtown. There's not a lot of single family homes like in any downtown anywhere in the country. So then that might automatically go, okay, no single family homes. You only have the 2 left now. And sometimes even townhomes are, you know, basically impossible, but maybe you can be right on the edge of downtown and there's more of like a row house style, something like that. But again, those immovable objects, and you probably know, but we also, you know, we help people who maybe they have a budget of like $1 million and they're like, we either want to live in a condo downtown or something 45 minutes outside with like some land. You know, and I mean, whether or not that's 100% achievable or within their timeline or whatever, that is something else to be said. But there are definitely people who are like, I want this or this. I'm not 100% sure yet. And it's just a matter of finding the right one of those. Okay, and then obviously those immovable objects, those non-negotiables, they might restrict you to just a sliver, right? Even though you're saying, maybe 30 minutes from this area, but then once you factor in schools or proximity to a family member or something that you want to be near, then that might just go, okay, well, you have a much smaller area with which to work. And then, so then area, like let's consider the area, obviously, beyond that for whatever reasons, let's say geographical reasons or something like that. And again, that's just going to be something that limits what is available to you. And sometimes that limit is actually a good thing, right? If you were just like, I can live anywhere, that's a little too much, like for most people, especially if they, depending on what a budget is, if they have a tiny budget and they say I can live anywhere, okay, that's probably good. But if you have a massive budget or just like, I don't really care if I spend, X, Y, or Z, then that gets a little bit complicated, a little bit too much the world is your oyster, and then you have a difficult time making any decisions. But yeah, then we'll figure out basically like what is the budget and what is available to you within that area. Because again, if the area is priority, if proximity to a school or work or whatever is priority, then you might have to say, okay, well, I can't afford a single family home within that area. I have to get, or maybe I can't even afford a townhome. Maybe it has to be a condo. But again, maybe certain immovable objects about you do not suit those things. But I think we can move on beyond basically like area and what is available to you within your price range in that area. If it can be any of the things, then okay, cool. Then now we have these sort of other things to weigh. So let's say you have the budget and the geographic area, and there are all three available. Okay, I know it took a while to get to that point, but I think that's the reality is like, well, you can't say I want a single family home in downtown. Okay, like it's not really a thing. So let's say we're in an area where your budget affords any of those things. And there's a housing stock of all condo, townhome, and single family homes. Then I'm going to say one of the first things that a lot of people consider is like how much house can I get for my money? Basically, and what condition, right? If I'm being honest, how shiny, how fancy can it be? That's the reality of most people. Sort of envision, I want to buy a home that is like, done up to a certain amount, or that is renovated up to a certain amount, or that is new to a certain extent, right? So that sort of like, how shiny can it be within my budget? Well, that's going to be another that's a very common factor, right? Let's just say, for just the sake of, an example, $600,000 gets you a very different single family home versus condo versus townhome, right? Those are different, almost always going to be different levels of like finishes. And typically, this is not always the case. It depends very much on the area, but typically single family homes are most expensive, townhomes are next, and condos are next. And that's not to say that epic downtown condo can't cost more than, a single family home, like anywhere, because there definitely is that. I would say townhomes are the most consistently in the mid-range, in the middle of those things, but as far as price goes, but often condition, you get a much like nicer, more renovated townhome for the same price or even a less price as what you would get for a single family home. So the condition, the shininess, that's definitely something worth considering. And then next up, I'm going to say one really important thing to consider is your lifestyle. And again, maybe that could sort of fit into that immovable object, but not really. We find a lot of people who are like, it'd be cool if I could walk to a bar or something like that, but it's not going to be, the home takes priority, right? So, but if your lifestyle is, I don't have a vehicle and I have to walk to blah, 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 then not to say that single family homes couldn't do that, but a lot of times like a condo is going to suit that a little bit more. But even beyond that, I'm going to say, let's say take area out of the equation again. If let's say they're in the exact same spot, does your lifestyle suit fixing a single family home? Does your lifestyle suit you being your own handy person, or having a relationship with a handy person who can come in and take care of things for you? Does your mental bandwidth even allow for you to we have this problem, whatever, the washing machine isn't working. Maybe that's a bad example. The siding got damaged. Now I have to go deal with it. That thing, just that sort of the responsibility and the time that would go in to maintaining a home, taking care of the yard in all facets, that is not for everybody, right? And if you have a single family home, it's inescapable unless you're just paying somebody to do all that stuff, at which point you're going to want to factor that into budget, right? If you have an unlimited budget, then you're fine. You can solve almost any of these problems with money, but most people don't. Most people they're gonna be things that they have to deal with. So, does your lifestyle suit just dealing with the maintenance of a home? Does do you have a very demanding job? Does that take a lot out of you? Does that, even to some degree, some people are like, my job pays too well to justify me mowing the lawn, and that's I guess that's understandable, right? There's probably a dollar amount to how much you could pay somebody to mow the lawn, or just my job, demands too much out of me. At the end of the day, the last thing I want to do is think about taking care of my home, right? For folks like that, I would say for sure a condo is going to be probably the best situation. A townhome would be the next, so for the most part, let me dive into this part. As far as what is required of you in all these different homes. A single family home, that's your home. You own the land, which is technically actually the real estate, little lesson. And then you own the improvement, which is the home and the buildings and any changes to it. So the utilities, the driveway, or whatever. Any of those things are called improvements to the real estate. The real estate is just the land. So side note, let's get back into what we're actually talking about. In a single family home, you are responsible for all of that. You're responsible for the real estate and the improvements, the lawn, the sewer line. It's more in depth than a lot of people think. Obviously, the utilities, the furnace, AC, any kind of situation like that. You're responsible for the roof and the siding and all of it. Right? Single family home, you're responsible for all of it. Townhome, again, right in the middle usually. Usually a townhome, you're responsible for all of the things inside of it, and there are some that don't exactly fit the situation, but for the most part, you're responsible for all of the things inside of it, but not the exterior. You're not responsible often for the siding, the roof, the maintenance of the lawn, because it is a community lawn, and I guess that's usually it. Sometimes are you responsible for the windows? Yes or no. For the most part, I would say yes, you are responsible for the windows, but not always. Is there a parking lot? Then in a townhome, typically somebody else is responsible for that, and etc. In a condo, that's where you have the least amount of sort of responsibilities typically. Sometimes, so you're almost never responsible for the exterior of the building, the roof, the common areas, because townhomes don't have common areas. They're not going to have a hallway. They're not going to have an entrance typically. They might have common amenities like a pool house or something like that, but for the most part, not like a common area inside. But a condo, you're not going to have to do any kind of yard maintenance at all. And then sometimes, depending on the situation, sometimes the condo takes care of things like heat, AC, water, trash, that kind of stuff, sort of the utilities. Sometimes even it includes TV, which to me is get rid of that. Give me internet, right? Sometimes it gives internet and TV, but it's I don't want to be paying an extra, X amount of dollars to have some decrepit old TV, setup through whatever company. So I don't exactly, that one just kind of, I find just annoying, because then it's like, here's your TV provider, and some people don't even use that, right? I don't have actual TV. And then, both townhomes and condos often will have some sort of like amenities. I would say condos are more likely to have an amenity, sort of like an amenity building or an amenity area, which would be maybe like a workout room or workout whatever gym, and then you also might have like a pool, sauna, hot tub, that kind of thing. You might have a dog walking area, or an off-leash dog area or something like that. Townhomes typically, some townhomes will have stuff like that, but for the most part, townhomes have less amenities and more like a pool, maybe sort of a gym situation, but it's just gonna be less extravagant. Again, a condo might have like a community bar, or just community rooms and stuff like that. Whereas townhomes might have some of that stuff, but it's just less likely. And yeah, so as far as lifestyle goes, which one of those appeals to you? Personally, I am not really like a common room user, right? Like, I've lived places where they have them, and I don't ever go in there. Maybe once a year I rent it out or something for a holiday or something. And part of that is just because like you feel like you should, because you're paying for it. So yeah, what is your lifestyle? If you are somebody who entertains people often, then maybe the community room or the rentable room or whatever, maybe that's amazing and that's everything you'd ever want. Maybe you do swim all the time, or you do go hang out in the hot tub. Sometimes they're like roof, swimming pools or roof hot tubs. It's definitely cool, but are you actually going to use that, right? So that is, to me, that's like sort of sums up the lifestyle thing. Another thing to sort of consider as far as the lifestyle goes, not just like, do I want to take care of it, but would be, does my lifestyle suit having a shared wall, right? I could go down a rabbit hole there, but my thought, here's where my brain's at, just so you know. I'm a musician, and I like to play music. I used to have like, play music like loud, like drums and stuff, in the home that I lived in. Now I have a studio for that. But like, some people are, they want to have a home studio. It's a little bit harder to do that in a townhome, and very difficult in a condo. It depends on what you're doing. Certainly like live drums or like live amps, that's going to be really tough to get away with. But a single family home, it's going to be considerably more doable. So, do you have any kind of like hobby? Are you a mechanic, right? Do you fix cars in your garage? Again, a single family home is for sure going to be the move there. You could maybe get by in a townhome, and maybe if a condo had, a stall garage with electric, maybe you could get by with it. But it's going to be tougher for sure. So, is there anything that you do that would like prohibit, sort of a shared wall situation? Okay. Moving on to that, I'm just basically going to say like the HOA. Here's something to consider. Is an HOA just like a deal breaker for you? Some people it is. Some people it depends on what that HOA allows, and I can get into some of that stuff in the next sections as well. But a lot of the time an HOA will put sort of restrictions on what you can do to the home, right? Can you add an addition to the home? Can you add a fence to the home? Can you paint the home fuchsia? But then on the other hand, something to consider, you might instantly think, well, that's annoying, I don't want to do that. But maybe you are like, who would paint their house fuchsia? Some people, right? And if you don't have an HOA, maybe your next door neighbor. Okay, so that's sort of the one of the biggest things to me as far as a pro-con situation of the HOA. Am I the person who wants to paint my house fuchsia, or do I really want to avoid my neighbor painting their house fuchsia? Okay, then that is a big factor in, do I like an HOA, do I not like an HOA? But then even beyond that, some HOAs will restrict breeds of dogs or amounts of pets, or even amount of people living in the home, right? So obviously you know your situation, you know like your goals and whatever, and obviously you know your situation, you know your goals and all that. So you should be able to determine that. But I would say just because you have a dog or a certain type of dog, don't say I can't do an HOA, but that might restrict which HOAs are going to be up your alley. Okay, and then for the next two, I'm just going to clump them together. Basically, I would say, what are your plans moving forward? What are your short-term plans? What are your long-term plans? And short-term, I guess I would say, because is what you're about to buy, are you going to grow out of that instantly? Are you like planning on having a child and you're about to go buy a one-bedroom condo? You know, maybe not the best call. So something to consider. Or do you intend on, moving out very soon? Or do is one of your family members going to move in? Are you going to need more space? That's really when I think of short-term plans is, are you very soon going to grow out of this home? Because that is a thing that people do. And a year later, they're like, shoot, we did not think that we were going to need another bedroom or another garage or something like that. So as far as your short-term plans, yeah, are you going to grow out of this home very, very soon? So that's short-term plans. As far as long-term plans, for one, do you intend to move anytime soon? I would say that that's not going to be that big of a factor, but it could be, and I'll kind of get to why. But some people buy a property with the intention of, in a year or two, renting it out and buying another home, right? So if that's you, good for you. And that's something that we can definitely like help you navigate too. But with that, then you have to be pretty mindful of this property I'm buying. Yeah, I'm going to live in it. I want to enjoy it, hopefully. But at the end of the day, I am buying it as a rental, and it has to make sense as a rental. And what makes sense as a rental very much depends on you. Some people would say, well, a rental has to cash flow X amount of dollars. Some people would say that a rental has to, maintain itself, break even. Some people would say, I don't mind paying into a rental a few $100s every month, into the payment and into maintenance because I believe in the appreciation play of it, right? And I think eventually the rents will catch up and then it'll have this pretty incredible asset. So, are you going to rent it? So the reason that I would bring that up is basically some HOAs don't allow rentals, right? And beyond that, some single family homes don't make sense for rentals, right? There are single family homes in like higher end neighborhoods where for certain people, if you're the person who's okay paying into it because they think this asset is going to appreciate a lot over time, then okay, that's a move, right? And I'm not here to like judge you on that move. If that works for you, cool, then maybe buy a more expensive one. But if you're like, well, I don't want to, if I do that, then I'm going to have a harder time affording the next home that I get. And so you're going to want to make sure that the home you buy is in an area where you're going to, be able to get a renter. You're going to be able to get where the rent and the mortgage work out in your favor. And then beyond that, like I said, some HOAs just don't even allow rentals, or they have restrictions on rentals. Probably the most common restriction that I see, like on as far as rentals are concerned, is yes or no to short-term rentals. So if you have this sort of ambition to create an Airbnb out of it once you sell it, some are just like hard pass, no short-term rentals. And some municipalities are like that too. So, I guess be careful about the area as far as that goes. But that's, if the short-term rental thing isn't even on your radar and you're just thinking about like a long-term rental, then the big question is, does that HOA allow, long-term rentals? I think it's probably most of them do, but they might also have restrictions on what percentage of the homes in the HOA can be rentals, because they don't want it to turn into 100% or like a 90% rental neighborhood, because then the people who own it might lower their value, etc. So they put those restrictions on to, hopefully help maintain the value of the home and the desirability of the home and the HOA in general. So that is the big one to me as far as long-term plans are considered. Are you going to buy it and then live in it for a little bit and then rent it out? cool. It's super doable and a smart play. Sometimes a condo in an urban area is like a really good move for that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes a townhome is in like a suburban area is like the move. Sometimes it's not. It all sort of depends on, do those numbers make sense, and etc. Last thing, I'm going to touch base on the HOA again and sort of the things to consider about an HOA. And I can make a whole other video on this, but I don't know if I can talk long enough about it to make it, worth it. So let me include it here. Basically, what are the pros and cons of an HOA? The big pros primarily for an HOA are, number one, your neighbor can't make their house crazy. That would be not allowed within the HOA. So they can't, make it a wacky house and thereby lowering your home value. That's probably the biggest reason for an HOA. Number two is they often will take care of outside maintenance, yard maintenance, street maintenance, that kind of stuff. And sometimes an HOA sits on a city street, so the street is maintained by the city, so it's not them doing that, but even yard and that kind of stuff. So that's a huge sort of pro for that. Sometimes too, they even do like background checks. So there's a certain level of security to an HOA controlled area where, you can't have a certain amount of, criminal record or something like that. So that is a benefit for some people, obviously not a benefit for some people. And then last for the pros, I would say, is that they can supply amenities, right? So they can supply those common spaces, the pools, and that kind of stuff. On the cons, some of these are just different sides of the same coin. For one, if you have a criminal record, you might have a harder time doing it. If you have a dog of a certain type, potentially you'll have a harder time getting in there. Not even breed, but like size. They have size restrictions. Let's say you have 3 pets. You have 2 cats and a dog. There are some places where they say 2 pet maximum. Okay, so that could be a bummer. Again, you're limited on what you can do with the home. If you think you can get a 2-bedroom and then, just add another bedroom, that might not be possible, right? In a townhome, or certainly in a condo, that's tougher. But that's not to say it's impossible, but it's more of a challenge. What you can do with the space is more difficult. Obviously, a condo HOA, they're gonna take care of the common spaces like the hallways and the entrance and stuff like that. But you have a hallway and an entrance, and then the biggest thing for the sort of cons of not just HOAs, but condos, townhomes, is that shared wall. That's a deal breaker for a lot of people. And then sometimes shared yard and sometimes an unfenceable yard, right? So if you have a townhome, sometimes I would say a lot of time, they don't allow you to fence your little section of the yard. So, which kind of makes sense. If they have to mow it, that kind of makes sense, because that would be a huge pain in the butt. If you had to go into your little fenced area, that would probably take everything longer and ultimately cost more. So those are the biggest factors to consider, in my opinion, about sort of, which one of the big 3 property types to buy. And I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. I would love a comment in the bottom, because I'm sure I forgot some stuff. Like, I'm sure I left out a few things to consider in terms of the big 3 or the HOA thing, because to me, the HOA is the big factor for a lot of people. The shared wall is probably the next biggest factor. But yeah, they're all big factors, because then I go, well, then budget and where you want to be. Yeah, so, yeah, they're all big factors. So if you could leave a comment, I would appreciate that very, very much. I'd love to know, what your thoughts are. Maybe you've lived in an HOA. Maybe you've had a good experience with an HOA, a bad experience with an HOA. Things to consider, things to look out for. One thing that I didn't mention, because to me it's just an absolute rabbit hole within the HOA, and we can talk about this in another video perhaps, is to consider the budget of the HOA. You have to be able to see these documents about the budget of an HOA before you buy. But that's very important because sometimes you get into an HOA, or in the past, some folks have gotten into an HOA that's like underwater, right? And financially, it's like in a very bad spot, which is not good for you. It's not good for the building. And as always, if you are thinking about moving here or buying a house here for the first time, get a hold of us and we will absolutely crush it for you. We'll make it go as smoothly as possible for you. And we can answer any of these questions that you might have about HOA, about, living in the big three housing stock types. This is what we do, and this is what we do better than anybody else. So as always, you can go to our website, welcometodenver.co. We have a contact form there. You can fill it out. It'll take literally 30 seconds if you're going fast. I'm talking pretty fast right now, actually. But you can also email us at info@welcometodenver.co. And yeah, they lead to the same exact inbox. So completely up to you how you do it. But yeah, we'll get back in touch with you. We'll make everything go as smoothly as possible. And as always, if you have not done so yet, if this is the first time to the channel, welcome. Thank you for being here. But as you exit the video, do so safely. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell to get notified, give the video a thumbs up, and leave a comment of any sort. Truly, the thumbs up and the comment, so helpful. My back is starting to get sore from sitting on this stool. So if you want to leave a comment, something along the lines of, sorry your back hurts, dude, that's cool. Or an actual comment pertaining to the video and everything we talked about would be great as well. But yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, you're the best. You're the GOAT. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.